Alright, so here's another video. We have RNG versus Rogue Warriors. I believe this took place a couple nights ago in LPL. Today we're going to be going over Xiaohu playing Gragas versus Nocturne. Right? So a couple things before we get started. Pretty much almost every Gragas lane being played in professional the past season, including now, pretty much revolves around Gragas fitting nicely into the comp on top of looking to kind of stonewall a strong lane, right? Last season you saw, or not last season, last split you saw a lot of Gragas versus Renekton. That was the goal. You saw a lot of Gragas into Gnar, just kind of looking to play that lane out, just literally looking to snowball lanes. It's something nice you can blind, doesn't feel too bad, can lane against most things, and if you're looking for either dive or anti-dive, he works well into both of those situations, right? So let's kind of go over his start and his rune setup, right? So it looks like he's got a Phase Rush and Mana Flow with Inspiration second. He took Biscuits. The general idea for this is against the Nocturne lane is just to basically be able to survive it. You're looking to have the Phase Rush to help you break out of Tether, or if you do get feared, ignore a lot of the slow to minimize the amount of damage you're taking in trades against Nocturne. And then Biscuits is basically just to help you get through lane, right? If you look down at his starting items, you notice he'll start Sapphire, Crystal, and Refillable. The general idea behind this is because he's going to be going AP Gragas. His main tool to kind of stonewall the Nocturne is just having an unlimited mana supply, just basically out-sustain him in that, right? Because his passive will give him enough for HP to be able to take small trades against Nocturne to kind of like whittle him down that way. But if he has the mana to just kind of sit in lane and stonewall it by just like perma-clearing the waves and making it difficult for Nocturne to actually move, then that's generally his goal, right? So by starting Sapphire Crystal, you're having a larger mana supply. You're not going to be fighting the Gragas anyway, and when you actually do use your biscuits, you're getting more out of them. But the main reason you're actually doing it is to be able to get to Lost Chapter faster, right? It's very difficult to guarantee a 1,300 gold back. It's a lot easier to guarantee a 950 gold back, right? Like backing on 950 is a lot simpler. It's what you do to get Lucidity boots. Like oftentimes, a lot of enchanters, especially, will just reset, grab Lucidity boots, and they'll be fine, right? So being able to force 950 is a lot easier than being able to force 1300, and that's literally the idea behind it. You're starting Sapphire Crystal, you're getting refillable, so you're able to sustain it through even more in lane. You have a larger mana pool, so your biscuits are giving you more mana back when you actually use them. It's just literally to make sure that his first reset, he has the Lost Chapter at least, right? Okay, so let's see how he actually starts. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm assuming they're going to break into a normal standard 5-point. They can invade if they want to. They do have Braum Karma, which means their level 1's pretty good, right? If they wanted to 5-man invade with Xiaohu taking E, that would have been fine as well. So he starts E. Literally, obviously, he doesn't win a fight against Nocturne at level 1. Everyone knows that. The only reason he really uses his E is just to get a mana flow stack before lane, right? What he figures is worst case, Nocturne trades hard onto him. It doesn't really matter because he can just reset and walk back, right? As long as he gets the mana flow stack, that's the important part. Alright, so place his vision to see where they start. And you can play the lane accordingly, right? Alright, so far they're not clearing it, Alright, they're not starting topside. So what he knows is that he's going to be clearing bot to top. Xin Zhao in turn will be clearing top to bot, so around 3 minutes he has to be a little bit careful because that's going to be a gank window, right? What he kind of does here is he kind of holds the wave a little bit, so it'll naturally push towards him slowly, if Nocturne doesn't already fast push the lane, right? So he doesn't fully pull the wave, because what you can normally do is you can let me just pull up this over here, right? So what you can normally do here is you can have as the Gragas kind of come out into here and hold the wave here-ish, right? In this area, because if you hold them in this area, what'll happen is that the wave will end up stacking instead of in the middle of the lane, it'll end up stacking right here, right? If it ends up stacking right here, obviously his minions will hit before your minions do, which means your minions are taking more damage and the wave's going to slow push into you, right? This is just basic, like, pulling wave, right? And that's why people do it, just in case you weren't aware. So he does kind of a semi-pull just in case Nocturne isn't going to push it. It's unlikely due to Nocturne's passive and E that you can naturally kind of push the wave, but it's just basically to make sure that that it makes it as difficult for him as possible, right? So because of Nocturne's kit as well, a lot of the E trades you take in lane have to be at level 1, or they have to be pretty much in melee range, because if you just E from max range, it's going to get spell shielded every time, and you're going to end up taking a bad trade, right? So now that Nocturne hits 2, he kind of has to concede wave. He was never going to hit 2 before Nocturne. Nocturne naturally has push between his passive and his E. So he basically just had to like take short chip trades level 1 to try to make the lane as easy as possible. And then after that point, just kind of understand the wave's coming in, right? So Nocturne crashes on wave 2. What this means is that the wave's going to push back a lot faster, and it means that Nocturne's not be able to take a reset here. He's not going to have enough gold, right? So in response, Xiaohu's basically just like kind of bouncing the waves off Nocturne. Like Nocturne's going to push him in. Xiaohu's just going to kind of accept it. He's taking E and W to just kind of like take quick trades. W is the easiest way for you to get HP back based off your passive, just through the fact that it's your cheapest spell, right? It's also the hardest one for Nocturne to spell shield. So it just kind of clears his waves. Not really much to do here, right? It's a stonewall lane. This is a lot of the way these lanes are going to go, right? Nocturne has shown no interest in kind of keeping Gragas out from under his tower. He's not really looking to get the wave back. So when Nocturne shows that all he's really willing to do is just kind of shove in repeatedly, Gragas actually ends up having a lot easier time in lane, right? So Gragas kind of steps up a little bit, holds the wave there. Now Gragas doesn't have a freeze, but he has a lane that's a lot harder for Nocturne to AFK push, right? Because he can't get to the back line of minions. So his general idea here is just to keep the wave here as long as he possibly can. Nocturne should be able to help him, but eventually Nocturne is going to get in and just do Q spam, or whatever his abilities, whatever the ability is actually on. Right, wave finally comes in. They're both level 4. Last hits everything under tower, right? So one thing I kind of want to note here is that I'm not sure if he starts maxing right now, but Gragas goes Emax in this lane, right? There's a couple reasons why he does that. Normally you would say, why don't you just go Qmax? You can wave clear at range. So the reason that you would go Emax is number 1, Q does reduce damage to minions, so you're not getting as much push out of it, right? Number 2, E roughly covers the same distance, assuming the minion wave is like a standard six-pack minion wave, right? Because if you stand in the middle of the wave, Gragas' model is so large that everything that hits it gets knocked back. That includes pretty much the entirety of the wave, right? So you're dealing more damage to minions, you're getting more push. The only downside is you actually have to be in melee range to do it. But on top of that, if you max E first, the cooldown goes from 16 to 12. Nocturne's tether, Fear Tether, is a 15-second cooldown level 1. He's not going to be maxing it, so it ensures that it makes it as easy as possible to get away from tethers whenever they may occur, right? Because if your one escape ability is on the lowest cooldown possible, it's also your wave clear ability. You obviously want it to be in a spot where if he tethers onto you, you should be able to get away from any time, right? So if you're playing around this kind of time range, you should be fine. That's mainly the reason why he's looking to maxi, right? All right. It's pretty standard. Nocturne is kind of holding the wave here. Eventually the wave is going to push in, though, just due to the minion HPs, right? Xiaohu knows this, so he's basically just looking to kind of accept the fact that the wave's coming into him. Now that this cannon's dead, it's going to start pushing a lot faster, and Nocturne doesn't have a choice. Nocturne starts to actually push it in, right? Starts to push it. It's no problem. At this point, Xiaohu, if he wants to take a reset, actually does have the gold for a lost chapter. Obviously, he can't as long as Nocturne is lane. As long as Nocturne is in lane, he doesn't really have a reason to reset. Because as long as he's in lane, as long as Nocturne is at the HP and mana value that he's at, Gragas can't ever really die. Gragas still has two biscuits available to him, so he's in no rush to get back. As long as Nocturne's willing to just kind of AFK push the wave, it's still very safe for Gragas to stay in lane. So he's totally okay with not trying to force a reset with TP back. He's totally fine to just kind of stay here, right? Alright, he starts his reset. Then he realizes, because the whole reason he stops and decides to back off is he realizes Nocturne's chasing Karma, right? So if Nocturne's chasing Karma, what you can do is you can try to use a biscuit to get the wave in, and if you get the wave in, the wave will bounce back, and you can set up a freeze when you get back from lane, right? You get a free reset without having to ever use TP, if Nocturne actually chases the Karma far enough, right? So he decides to do that. I'm assuming he'll use a biscuit in a moment. Yep, he uses a biscuit for the mana and tries to pass push the wave, right? He's got his Q there. He steps in the middle of the wave. He's about to E it. Then Nocturne shows back up, right? Now he's in kind of an awkward spot again, well, because he used the biscuit early. He didn't get his reset off. Now he can't reset again. Nocturne's level 6. He's level 6, but he has maybe the mana to use literally 2 spells. He has to choose Q alt or E alt or QE if he really wants to. So again, he's kind of being held hostage in lane by Nocturne here. He's okay with it because he just mainly wants to get to the part where he can reset for Lost Chapter, but until then, he just kind of has to stay, right? Nocturne gets free push, and then walks around, because Gragas is literally at no mana, can't really do anything, he just kind of forces down the plate for free gold, right? So what he's done by doing that is he's stacked the wave large enough with Gragas at a low enough mana that it's basically saying either it's me, either you can put chip damage on me that's not going to stick anyway, because I still have 3 biscuits and pot charges, or you can get the wave, right? So in order for Gragas to actually do any meaningful damage to Nocturne here, he has to essentially sack the entire wave, which is something he can't really do at this stage in the game, right? That's way too much gold going down the drain if he actually tries to do it. So he proxy farms, fights breaking out on bot side. The whole reason Nocturne wants to proxy farm this wave is he wants to get the wave down, so a wave crashes in, so Gragas feels like he has to stay. Because the wave is down, Nocturne can alt TP down and then uses R when he gets down, right? Xiaohu in a second realizes this, and he realizes that before Nocturne kills this wave, he has to get down there, because if Nocturne gets his ult off before Xiaohu's TP started, then his team just pretty much auto-loses the fight, just because Nocturne gets there first, right? So he has to get it down while Nocturne's still clearing. Comes down, uses both of his biscuits for mana. That's the reason you hold on to him, right? A little bit of an unfortunate ultimate, but they still managed to get the set, right? So they grab the set. He has his E again in a second. Doesn't matter. All right. Picks up a kill there. So on reset, he'll be able to get Lost Chapter and Lucidity Boots. He loses out on a little bit of farm, but it doesn't really matter, because again, the whole reason you're picking the Gragas is to stonewall the lane. You're not looking to win it. It doesn't matter if you're down 10 CS at 7 minutes, right? So he just gets to walk up for free. Both top laners use their TP. The wave's met in the middle. No one's really losing out. He ends up actually up on gold due to the fact that he got a kill and an assist, right? Despite the fact that he's down 11. So from this point, things should be pretty smooth for Gragas. He still can't fight the Nocturne just due to the nature of the matchup, but now that he has his Lost Chapter, he kind of just AFK wave. He kind of just looks to wave clear against the Nocturne and make it difficult for him to move, right? So now that Gragas is on top side, what he can do here is he can literally just step up. Not Gragas. Now that Xin Zhao is on top side with Braum, he can literally just step up. What he wants to do is he wants to make sure that his wave is pushed out and stacked up enough so that Nocturne has trouble moving to Herald. Nocturne shouldn't have ult up again, so if he wants to move to Herald, he has to actually move, right? You can see when they actually all take their resets what they're planning on doing, right? Because Gragas walks up first, Xin Zhao takes his reset, Braum takes his reset. When you're resetting around a 7:30 timing, what that's basically saying is you're walking top for Herald, right? That should be getting called by the other team as well as their team, right? So when you know that they're setting up for Herald, what ends up having to happen is Gragas has to stack, like I said, he has to stack the wave, make it so that Nocturne has trouble moving to Herald, and make it so that he can at least try to move first, right? He has to do it while Nocturne's not there, though, because if Nocturne gets to the wave, then it turns into a situation where Nocturne has control of the wave because he can just outright fight Gragas over it, right? Like we're seeing, Braum and Xin Zhao are both walking into topside. Gragas' wave getting bigger. He's going to come in, and he's going to look to try to push in the second wave now, or at least be in a spot where he's not getting pushed in. Nocturne realizes this and does the exact, and basically looks to counteract Gragas' push, right? Because Rumble is already on it, now Gragas and Nocturne have to basically walk down at the same time. Nocturne's at an HP, Gragas is an HP disadvantage, right? So they both walk down alongside each other. Nocturne shouldn't have ultimate yet. And they basically look to try to one-shot the Rumble. Unfortunately, ult comes down, makes it difficult for them to actually do that. They get the Herald, but aren't able to actually pick it up because of the ensuing fight, right? So they trade 3 for 1. They get the Herald, but they can't pick it up. So that's a net negative trade for them, but it's fine, right? Walks back up. Still down 10 CS, still totally fine with it, right? He has this lost chapter, he has a little bit of extra AP. So the whole reason that Gragas is looking to build Everfrost here, right? The whole reason he decides to actually pick up the Amp Tome over the because like Everfrost builds out of what? Lost Chapter, Kindle Gem, Blasting Wand, right? His only real buy here, if he actually wants something, is he can maybe either get a Dark Seal or he can get a Ruby Crystal to continue to build an Everfrost, right? He doesn't really care about the HP because as long as Nocturne can't just 100 to 0 him, he's going to sustain naturally through his passive, right? And he's going to make it's already difficult enough for Nocturne to really stay on top of him, so he doesn't really care about that. So as long as he can have a little bit more AP in lane to look to punish the Nocturne harder on small trades, or to just kind of get make his wave clear just a little bit better, he'd rather have that than have Kindle Gem or not Kindle Gem, Ruby Crystal at this stage, right? And the extra 25 AP you get from Amp Tome really helps out with that, right? So even though it doesn't build in the mythic he's actually trying to do right now, it still works out for him. So a lot of what you see in this lane is whenever Nocturne is in the lane, Gragas wants to push as fast as possible, right? Nocturne doesn't really have the ability to hold the wave due to his passive in the way that you want to play Nocturne top. So if you can kind of push the wave and keep Nocturne from pushing under your tower for as long as possible, you can save yourself a lot of plays, you can save yourself a lot of gold, and make it a lot easier for you in the long run, right? Because Gragas in general can pretty much wave clear from range against Nocturne if he really wants to, right? The Q makes it really easy to do that, even though he's not maxing it. It has a high enough AP ratio that with the AP that he has, he's more than capable of actually clearing waves with it, right? He's taking short chip trades, like I said earlier. He's fine with taking even trades against Nocturne just due to his passive. He's going to naturally trade himself back into it, right? Or not trade himself back into it, just sustain himself through it with his passive. Looking here, holds wave, stands in the middle of the wave, and uses E. At max level, E actually does more damage than Q in general, I think by about 20. The only thing that I think is that Q against non-minions has a higher AP ratio, right? So he's basically just looking to keep them both low. At this stage, the main reason behind kind of taking this kind of a deep trade against Nocturne is that Xin Zhao's pathing up. And when he realizes Xin Zhao starts to path up, what he does first is he walks down, like we saw earlier, places vision in a tri-bush to make sure it's not pinked, and then starts taking a hard trade against Nocturne, knowing that if Xin Zhao comes, having him to be as low HP as possible would be ideal, right? Because Gragas isn't crazy. He knows he doesn't win this trade, or he doesn't win this fight, this all-in, right? So all he wants to do is he wants to trade him down low enough and try to keep the wave from actually crashing. And if there's no vision in tri-bush, then you can actually look for a play on Nocturne, right, to get a free kill. Because I believe that Nocturne Splash is still down from the Herald fight. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what it is. So because Xin Zhao is actually topside right now, and because of the trade earlier where Nocturne should still be about half HP and Gragas would have sustained with his passive by now, what he's looking to do is literally just get the wave pushed in. Once it's pushed in, they can look to die for free on Nocturne, right? Nocturne has no flash, he has no ultimate, he has no real way to stop them, right? Even if he spell shields, he only really spell shield one thing. It doesn't really matter, so naturally he just kind of holds the tank for Xin Zhao so that Nocturne can't trade back with a fear or anything. And it's free dive on that end, right? Get a couple plates, push in one more wave, and then they take their reset, right? Once you see Rumble show up, you can no longer see to push the wave. So what ends up happening here is they kind of just look to chip it down as much as possible. It doesn't matter if the wave outright dies, it just matters that it's low enough that it'll naturally push on its own, right? This is the whole reason why Xin Zhao smites the cannon, just keep it low as possible, or at least try to kill it at that point. It's basically just to make sure that the wave starts to bounce back towards Gragas once he gets back into lane, right? So after that, Gragas has 3 components to Everfrost. Unfortunately, because he bought the Amp Tome earlier, he can't afford the full thing. That's fine. That's not that big of a deal. His raw AP is higher than it would be otherwise, right? And the active on Everfrost isn't super useful for him in lane yet, right? He just mainly wants to have it for team fighting later on. Yeah, right now things are kind of just like stonewalling out a little bit. Nocturne realizes that unless Gragas makes a pretty big mistake, he's not going to kill him. Gragas feels pretty much the same way. So it's mainly just Gragas using barrels for poke at this point. Taking very short trades, if anything. Making sure that Nocturne can't look for a reset or do anything. So this play, from what I remember, is pretty much just a miscalculation in damage from Gragas, right? Gragas essentially has more than an item's worth of AP at this point. He feels like he can outright that if Nocturne makes some mistakes or he can get enough poke down, he can look to all on Nocturne, right? But because he misses that, he kind of looks to back off. If I were in his shoes, I'd probably wait to sustain just a little bit longer with passive. But what ends up here is that he literally just miscalculates damage, right? If he's level 11 and the ultimate has 2 points in it, then he obviously kills, but he misses off by about 100, 150 HP or so. And that makes it so he's basically just handing over gold for nothing, right? It isn't all of them doesn't really make too much sense to me. The only real thing that I can consider is due to where Xin Zhao is at the time and where he's pathing at the time. He's clearing bot side, clearing up. What could be going on with this initial trade is that Xin Zhao is basically communicating that he's going to be pathing topside, and they're going to be looking for either another dive onto Nocturne or a tower, or the tower, or perhaps both, right? So around the time that he looks for this all in, he's doing his wolves, he's doing his raptors, pathing up, right? Just mainly looking to chip down, right? The whole idea, like I mentioned earlier, Gragas can kind of sustain back with his passive, while Nocturne can't. All he wants to really do is make sure that Nocturne stays. If he just waits for Xin Zhao to actually finish his clear and walk up topside, this is probably just first tower topside, right? Because he gets kind of greedy, he feels like he has lethality, even though he doesn't. He ends up killing the play on his own, essentially. All of his damage goes down, he just literally didn't have the damage. It was just a miscalculation, right? So instead, Xin Zhao, who was probably going to be pathing topside, to actually look for a kill on the Nocturne, now has to essentially look to do something else. He can't do it anymore, right? So at this stage, laning is pretty much over at this stage. There's not really too much more to talk about. I think this is a good example of how you kind of look to stonewall a lane against oppressive laners. Nocturne is one of the laners especially that kind of just doesn't really feel like he has too many, if any, bad matchups. One of the few people who can play into Gwen, he can play into a number of other top laners that feel really, really rough to play against, and he just kind of looks to just kind of AFK wave clear his way through it, right? Gragas actually has the tools, especially with Lost Chapter completed, to keep Nocturne from just kind of taking over the entire lane. A lot of other tanks, and I guess frontliners in this case, would be down a lot more, or would be able to not really stop Nocturne from either shoving them or moving pretty much wherever he wants in the map. The main goal that was accomplished here, I think, by Xiaohu is keeping Nocturne from being able to just like roam from top at will, right? So I think this is a good example of how you kind of do that with itemization as well as just kind of playing your waves, right? Pushing as hard as you can whenever Nocturne's not there. Deciding to go AP. I know that he naturally goes AP, like not naturally, but Xiaohu goes AP Gragas a lot in general, but deciding to go AP and picking up that Lost Chapter and even itemizing to get Sapphire Crystal first to ensure that he gets Lost Chapter first back are a couple things that he kind of does to make sure that he can get to where he needs to get in this game, right? So tomorrow I'll be putting out another video, like I normally do, 2 to 3 a week. I have yet to do 3 a week, but I will at the very least be putting out 2. So I'll be putting out a second one tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do it on. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd like to see. Feel free to message me on Discord, message me on YouTube, drop a comment, let me know what you want or anything you're interested in. Other than that, I'll talk to you later.